A 70-year-old mystery may finally be solved. It involves tons of gold and jewels stolen by Nazi thieves.
Du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet habe?
From hidden treasures to groundbreaking technologies, welcome to a journey through history where secrets are revealed.
U.S. soldiers come into this room and they discover 8,198 of these gold bars.
And the world changes forever. Pulled from the darkness of the past, finds from World War II still offer deep insights into a pivotal era in human history.
The Second World War was a deadly war that killed millions and millions of people, including innocent civilians.
These discoveries, often surprising, share tales of bravery, trickery, sorrow, and exploration, giving us a clear view of the war's widespread effects. In this video, we'll explore the top 30 amazing finds from that time, showcasing the objects that silently witnessed history. Number 30. Finding of U-505. The U-505 was a German submarine, a Type 2IC U-boat, active during World War II. The United States Navy captured it on June 4, 1944. This was an extraordinary event, because it was the first time since the 1800s that a U.S. Navy ship caught an enemy at sea. But the story of the U-505 didn't stop there. It went on to become a key museum piece. Launched into service in 1941, the U-505 took part in many patrols and battles under different captains. It managed to sink 8 ships belonging to the Allies. Yet, its time at sea was full of technical troubles and accidents. The capture of the U-505 happened during Operation Teardrop, which aimed to find and either capture or destroy German submarines in the Atlantic. The U.S. Navy, armed with intelligence and superior anti-submarine strategies, saw the U-505 near West Africa. After an attack by planes and ships, the U-505 was badly damaged, leading its crew to evacuate. The USS Guadalcanal's crew boarded the abandoned submarine, grabbing very important code books, papers, and gear that helped Allied codebreakers. The capture of the U-505 was kept secret, hidden from the public and most of the U.S. military. This was to keep the Germans from finding out their codes had been broken. The submarine was taken to Bermuda for quiet examination. After the war, the U-505 could be used for target practice and sunk. But, thanks to efforts led by Captain Daniel Gallery, who captured it, and his brother, Rear Admiral Philip D. Gallery, it was saved. 1954, the U-505 was given to the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. Moving this huge submarine to the museum required a detailed and varied plan involving different moving methods. Number 29. Enigma Machine. The Enigma Machine is a standout symbol of YI's vast, secret world of codebreaking. Developed by German engineer Arthur Scherbius early in the 20th century for commercial use, the German military soon saw its value for secret messages, turning it into a complex tool for making messages no one could read. The Enigma had different versions, but worked on a key idea: rotating rotors that turned regular messages into complex code. Polish intelligence could buy an Enigma at a trade expo and obtain a code book from a French spy. When Poland was conquered in 1939, the Poles knew they would be unable to decipher the code and turned over the knowledge and equipment to the Allies. The Germans made breaking it much tougher by adding extra rotors and a plug board to scramble the letters further. Its alleged indestructible properties made it an important element of the German war effort, allowing for secure communication transmission. By the war's conclusion, the British were reading 10% of all German Enigma communications at Bletchley Park in England, using the world's first electromagnetic computers. Found after the war, these machines now sit in museums, physical reminders of the unseen battle of wits alongside the actual fighting, showing the crucial mix of technology, intelligence, and combat. Number 28. The Amber Room. The Amber Room, often called the world's eighth wonder, was a Baroque masterpiece made mostly of amber, gold, and gems. It was built in the 18th century and was a highlight of the Catherine Palace near St. Petersburg, Russia. Its whereabouts during World War II are still a big mystery today. The room was a present from the Prussian king to Peter the Great in 1716. It became a sign of Russian luxury and artistry. But when Germany invaded the Soviet Union in World War II, the Nazis took the room apart. They put the panels in boxes and sent them to Königsberg Castle, now in Kaliningrad, Russia. After the war, no one knew what happened to the Amber Room, leading to many guesses. Some think it was lost in the Allied bombings, others believe it's hidden somewhere. In 1997, an Italian stone mosaic, Feel and Touch, from a set of 4 stones that had ornamented the Amber Room was discovered in Germany in the ownership of the family of a soldier who claimed to have assisted in the packing of the Amber Chamber. The mosaic was handed over to Russian officials and utilized in the rebuilding. In 1998, 2 distinct teams, German and Lithuanian, declared that they had found the Amber Room. The German team referred to a silver mine, while the Lithuanian team thought the amber wealth was buried in a lagoon. Neither site contained the Amber Room. Despite many searches in mines, bunkers, and castles, no one has found the original Amber Room. Yet, there was a twist. Russia decided to remake this lost treasure with help from private donors and Germany. Using old photos and descriptions, it took over 20 years, more than $11 million, and skilled workers to rebuild the Amber Room. It reopened 2003 in the Catherine Palace, letting people admire its beauty again. The mystery of the original Amber Room still intrigues historians, treasure seekers, and art fans. There are still rumors and supposed sightings, keeping its story alive. The new Amber Room shows the dedication to bringing back a piece of cultural history almost lost in the war. Number 27. The Nazi Gold Train. The story of the Nazi gold train has intrigued many treasure seekers and history buffs. This train, reportedly filled with gold, jewels, and valuable items taken by Nazis during World War II, is believed to be hidden in the hills of Lower Silesia, now part of Poland. According to an apocryphal account, in the latter months of World War II, a Nazi armored train filled with gold and other riches departed Breslau, now Wrocław, arrived at the station Freiburg in Schlesien, but did not reach the following station Waldenburg in Schlesien. The train is believed to have entered an abandoned coal mine or tunnel system under Sionge Castle, which is part of the unfinished top-secret Nazi building project, Project Riese, in the Owl Mountains. The train was meant to carry over 330 tons, of wealth, jewels, weaponry, and artistic marvels. Historians claim that the existence of the train has never been established. The Polish armed forces searched extensively for the train throughout the Polish People's Republic, 1947-1989, but they could not locate anything. According to the legend, this treasure was concealed in a covert tunnel to prevent discovery as Soviet forces approached. Despite many efforts, searches, and studies, no one has found the gold train, and proof of its existence comes mainly from stories. In 2015, 2 people hunting for treasure said they found the train's location with special radar. This news caused a big stir and led to a fresh search with lots of resources and government involvement, but still, the train wasn't found, making people more doubtful. The Nazi gold train story is still a mystery full of myths, history, and the longing for discovery. It shows the lasting impact of World War II and keeps sparking people's curiosity worldwide. Number 26. Finding of the sunken aircraft carrier USS Yorktown. The USS Yorktown, an American aircraft carrier, was key in World War II's Pacific battles. The ship was commissioned in 1937 and could accommodate 2,000 sailors. The studies also looked at the Imperial Japanese Navy's aircraft carriers Akagi and Kaga, which were hit by aerial bombs. To prevent their capture, the Japanese planned to sink both ships. It suffered significant damage at the Battle of Midway in June 1942 and was later lost by Japanese torpedoes. The location of the USS Yorktown's sinking remained unknown for over 4 decades. The Japanese never fully recovered after their defeat. This enabled the United States and its allies to begin seizing control of Japanese areas. They accomplished this by successively invading islands and conducting large naval battles. In addition to the Yorktown, the U.S. lost around 362 sailors, the destroyer Haman, and 144 aircraft. The carriers, Enterprise and Hornet, survived the battle intact. In 1998, Dr. Robert Ballard, known for finding the Titanic wreck, led a team that discovered the Yorktown deep in the ocean, over 3 miles down, near Midway Atoll. This find was a big deal for underwater exploration. They got amazing pictures of the shipwreck using high-tech gear and underwater drones. This journey into the deep sea gave new information about the ship's last moments and reminded us of the sacrifices made during the war. Finding the USS Yorktown is more than just discovering a lost ship. It's about the mix of history, technology, and the human spirit to keep pushing boundaries. This discovery lets researchers learn more about a major World War II naval fight and keeps the memory of the USS Yorktown and its crew alive and honored. Number 25. Graf Zeppelin. Germany built just one aircraft carrier in World War II, the Graf Zeppelin, launched in 1938, right before the war started. Hitler had hoped it would be ready by 1942, but by 1943 it was still not finished, being 95% complete. To that purpose, Chief Engineer Wilhelm Hadeler was reassigned to oversee the Graf Zeppelin's completion. Hadeler planned to start the 2 inner shafts and their separate propulsion systems first, giving the ship an initial speed of 25 to 26 knots, sufficient for sea testing and air training. By the winter of 1943-1944, she was projected to be combat-ready. The sole Allied air attack on Graf Zeppelin during the war occurred on the night of August 27-28, 1942, while she was still docked at Gottenhafen. 3. Royal Air Force Avro Lancaster. Heavy bombers from 106 Squadron were sent against the German aircraft carrier, each carrying a single capital ship bomb, a 5,600-pound, 2,540 ordnance with a shaped charge warhead designed for armored targets. One pilot, who was unable to see the carrier due to haze, dropped his bomb instead on the estimated position of the Gneisenau. The Soviets could not repair the ship within the time frame stipulated by the Allied Tripartite Commission. Hence, she was declared a Category C ship. Hitler eventually lost interest in it, and after the war, the ship was sunk in Poland's shallow waters. The Soviets chose to rescue the crippled ship, which was refloated in March 1946. Western historians speculated about the ship's fate for decades after the war ended. According to German historian Erich Gruner, the Soviets raised the scuttled ship and towed it to Leningrad. During a storm, she allegedly collided with a mine off the coast of Finland. Gruner stated that she was broken up for scrap once Graf Zeppelin arrived in Leningrad. However, the Russians discovered it and brought it to Leningrad in 1946. They used it for target practice, hitting it with more than 24 bombs. Surprisingly, it stayed afloat until it sank. Its exact location remained unclear for decades until 2006, when Petro-Baltic discovered the debris. It was 264 feet deep near Gdansk. Number 24. Uncovering of SS Gersopa's silver cargo. The SS Gersopa was a British steamship carrying cargo. In 1941, while traveling from India to Britain, a German submarine attacked and sank it. The ship had a huge amount of silver, about 7 million ounces, meant to help Britain during the war. On January 30th, 1941, Gyrsappa left Freetown with SL-64, a convoy of 30 merchant ships destined for Liverpool. However, heavy rain hindered the convoy and depleted Gyrsappa's bunkers. On February 15th, her master, Captain Gerald Highland, detached her from SL-64, slowed her to 5 knots, 9 km/h, to preserve coal, and changed course for the nearest protected anchorage, Galway Bay in neutral Ireland, for bunkering. A German Focke-Wulf FW-200 aircraft circled Gyrsappa around 08 EU on February 16th. 1800 hours, U-101 discovered her, but its attack was delayed due to strong waves. U-101 fired 2 torpedoes at 2328 HRs and a third at 2332 HRs. They all missed. On February 17th, at 1800 hours, U-101 fired a 4th torpedo, which struck the starboard side of Gyrsappa's No. 2 hold. The ship caught fire and landed near the bow. At 00:20 hours, U-101 launched a 4th torpedo as a coup de grace, but it missed. Gyrsappa's crew abandoned the ship in 3 lifeboats, and she sank approximately 20 minutes after being hit. Until 2011, the SS Gyrsappa wreck remained submerged deep under the ocean, almost 4,700 meters below the surface. That year, an American company called Odyssey Marine Exploration discovered the wreck in the North Atlantic. The next year, they started to bring up the silver from the bottom of the sea. This job was hard and became one of the biggest and deepest recoveries of valuable metals ever. Odyssey managed to bring up more than 61 tons of silver. People see this as an amazing example of what can be done in underwater exploration and engineering. Finding the SS Gyrsappa's silver cargo didn't just bring up lost treasure. It also highlighted a part of World War II that isn't discussed much: how important sea transport was for moving resources. It reminds us of the huge efforts, dangers, and planning needed to manage the economy during war times. Number 23. Me-262. Jet inside of a bomb crater. Inside a bomb crater, something unexpected was discovered. The Messerschmitt 262 was the first jet fighter to be used in combat. This discovery highlighted how air warfare, which became a major part of World War II, brought destruction from the sky to once safe places. More advanced planes were made as the war went on, causing more significant damage. There have been many cases of bombs from the war being found unexploded, but one incident in Göttingen, Germany in June 2010 was incredibly shocking. Workers found a 500-kilogram bomb from the Allies buried 23 feet deep. An attempt to disarm it went wrong, killing 3 people and injuring 6. Another remarkable find was in October 2014 in the Netherlands. Workers near the Deelen Air Base in Arnhem found a jet plane on a farm. It's thought that the aircraft was shot down in 1944 and the pilot died in the crash. To hide it, the Germans put the wreckage in a bomb crater, where it stayed hidden for many years. They chose to excavate in the area because bomb holes were frequently used as suitable dumping grounds during WBE. What was trash 70 years ago can be treasure now, but it was a big surprise when the characteristic of the slightly damaged and corroded nose of the Me-262 emerged from the ground, complete with its 4-gun apertures. With its strongly armored glass, the readily identifiable windshield debuted, as did 2 Mk108 30mm nose-mounted cannons. Finally, the wing portions appeared. The team excavated by hand, but after a whole day of effort, they still couldn't get the wing portion with its undercarriage to move. So they returned the next day with more substantial earth-moving equipment. Once they started rolling, it was evident why the wing wouldn't budge. The primary spar was embedded deep in the ground. The other wing was beneath it, at the bottom of the pit. The museum also recovered many loose parts, including sections of a Junkers Jumo 004 jet engine. Because only 2 cannons were discovered in the wreck, The museum initially suspected that the aircraft was a Me-262A-2A Sturmvogel, Stormbird, fighter-bomber variant, as this type had just 2 cannons fitted and 2 empty gun ports fared over. Number 22. Recovery of stolen artworks. World War II saw an enormous and organized theft of art and cultural treasures, mainly by the Nazis. Thousands of art pieces were taken and ended up in private hands, museums, and hidden places. The effort to get these stolen artworks back started during the war and is still ongoing. Governments, organizations, and people work hard to find, identify, and return these cultural treasures to their original owners or families. A key part of this effort was setting up the Monuments, Fine Arts, and Archives program, also known as the Monuments Men. This group from the Allied forces worked to find and protect cultural properties in areas affected by the war. Their hard work helped recover millions of pieces of art and cultural items. After the war, the Allies found many hidden places full of stolen art, like over 6,500 paintings in a salt mine in Austria and art collections in Neuschwanstein Castle in Germany. Confiscated artworks were frequently kept for private Nazi and German collections. In contrast, others were sold to buyers in neutral nations such as Switzerland to acquire funds for further art pieces and materials for the Nazi war machine. Furthermore, Switzerland provided a significant market for selling off degenerate art. The Paris art market was the most active during the war years. French auction houses and dealers offered artworks at exorbitant prices to German buyers. The Netherlands' art treasures were the second most popular for art pillage, and the Italian market was also rife with merchants who took advantage of Germans and Nazis by raising prices and extracting profits at the expense of their German allies. Giving these artworks back to their rightful owners has been a complex process with many legal, ethical, and historical challenges. Some art pieces have been returned, but others must be included or caught in legal fights. The return of Gustav Klimt's portrait of Adele Bloch-Bauer for Serres to Maria Altmann became a famous case, even being made into a movie called Woman in Gold. Lately, digital tools, databases, and international teamwork have made tracking and verifying stolen art easier. Organizations like the Art Loss Register and various national groups keep helping with research, claims, and returning stolen items. Number 21. The Bad Arolsen Archives. In the quiet German town of Bad Arolsen, there's a set of plain buildings that hold the world's biggest collection of records on the people who suffered or survived under the Nazis. This place, known as the Bad Arolsen Archives of the International Tracing Service, has over 30 million documents about the terrible events of the Holocaust, forced labor, and how people were moved around during and after World War II. The Red Cross was first set up to help find missing people after the war. Over time, it grew to keep records from places like concentration and extermination camps, ghettos, and prisons run by the Gestapo. These records have been really important for studies and for giving back to people what was taken, helping to prove what happened to victims, and bringing back together families that were separated by the war. The archives weren't open for everyone to see until 2007 because people were worried about privacy. Since opening up, they've been an important tool for people studying history, researchers, and family members of those who were harmed, showing how widespread and planned the Nazi crimes were. A project started in 2016 to put all these records online has helped share this information with people worldwide. Through efforts like Every Name Counts, the Bad Arolsen Archives are getting people involved in remembering those affected. More than 70 years after the conclusion of World War II, the ITES receives over 1,000 queries per month from all around the globe. Most of them now come from younger generations looking for information on the whereabouts of their family members. In 2015, the ITS received around 15,500 inquiries about the whereabouts of 21,909 people from survivors, family members, and researchers. Today, the Bad Auschwitz Archives remind us of the terrible things that happened during the Holocaust and how important it is to remember the truth of history, to fight against those who deny or change what happened. As the number of people who lived through the Holocaust gets smaller, the archive makes sure the stories and experiences of millions of victims are not forgotten, standing as a witness to one of the darkest times in history. Number 20. The Ghost. During World War II, amidst all the fighting and destruction, a unique group known as the Ghost Army played a big but not so famous part in helping the Allies win. This group comprised artists, actors, architects, and engineers, all part of the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops of the United States Army. Their job was to trick the enemy into thinking the Allied forces were bigger than they were. They used a mix of tricks like fake tanks, the sounds of armies, and fake radio messages to make the Germans think there were Allied soldiers when there weren't any. They were good at making it seem like there were large military bases in places with nothing but air, using inflatable tanks and fake planes. They also played sounds of soldiers and machinery to make it sound like a big army was moving around. Their fake radio chats sent the Germans on wild goose chases. To supplement previous methods, the unit frequently used theatrical effects to augment the other deceptions. Collectively called atmosphere, these included simulating actual units deployed elsewhere by the application of their divisional insignia, painting appropriate unit logos on vehicles, and having the individual companies deployed as if they were regimental headquarters units. The same few covered cars or lorries with only 2 personnel in the visible seats in the back to make them appear to be full of motorized infantry would be driven in a loop to simulate long convoys. MPs, military police, would be stationed at crossroads, wearing suitable divisional logos, and some personnel would dress as divisional generals and staff officials when visiting towns where enemy spies or scouts were likely to observe them. Even though their work was kept secret until the 1990s, it was very important. They managed to save many lives by confusing the German forces, especially near the war's end. Nowadays, the clever tactics of the Ghost Army are remembered in documentaries and museums, and there's even talk in the US Congress about giving them a special medal to thank them for what they did. Their story keeps being told, showing how thinking outside the box and being creative can make a difference in tough situations like war. Number 19. Carrier Pigeon in Chimney. During World War II, carrier pigeons were messengers for the Allied powers. Decades after World War II, researchers discovered the remains of a carrier pigeon carrying a secret coded message in a chimney in Surrey, England. This find happened in 2012. This message could illuminate World War II details, but only if decoded. England is the most secret site of World War II Britain. It is where the Nazi military codes were violated. It's now at the center of a new story about wartime courage, sacrifice, and intrigue. And these birds. In this example, pigeons are not the adversaries of park monuments, but the best friends of soldiers who employ them to transmit critical messages. On D-Day, paratroopers brought homing pigeons to ensure radio quiet. Bomber crews used them to communicate where they were if they were shot down. Pigeons faced snipers and hawks trained to kill them. Many people got it through. Many didn't, including one discovered in David Martin's chimney. During the war, the UK used over 250,000 pigeons to carry messages, and 32 of these birds were honored with the Dickon Medal, the highest award for bravery given to animals. Some famous medal winners were an Irish pigeon named Paddy and an American Army pigeon named G.I. Joe. However, the code found with this pigeon might never be understood, as it has yet to be cracked. Number 18. The SS. Richard Montgomery. The SS Richard Montgomery, a munitions ship from the U.S., rests just under the water in the Thames estuary near Sheerness, England, serving as a chilling reminder of World War II's lasting dangers. Built in 1943, the ship was part of America's push to make ships for the war. It was used to bring supplies to the Allies. In August 1944, loaded with about 7,000 tons of munitions from Hague Island, Philadelphia, aimed for Cherbourg, France. Its cargo had high explosives, detonators, bombs of different sizes, and bullets. The ship reached the Thames estuary later that month, anchoring in a spot for ships waiting for better conditions or places to unload. But due to low tide and overload, it got stuck in the mud. Attempts to free it failed, and it broke in two and sank with all the dangerous explosives still on board. One of the reasons why the explosives were not removed was the terrible conclusion of a similar effort in July 1967 to neutralize the contents of the Polish cargo ship Kielce, which sank in 1946 off Folkestone in the English Channel. During preparatory work, Kielce burst with the force of a 4.5 Richter scale earthquake, creating a 20-foot deep, Sex Mem crater in the seabed and causing panic and chaos in Folkestone, though no one was injured. Critics of the government's assurances that the possibility of a significant explosion is low say that one of the 2,600 fused fragmentation device's fuses could become partially flooded, causing the reaction to produce copper azide. A knock, such as a ship breaking apart more or a collision on the busy shipping lane, could cause the copper azide to explode, setting off an explosive chain reaction that detonates most weapons. The wreck site has been frequently inspected since 1965 to determine the structure's stability, with a diver survey performed in 2003. High-resolution multi-beam sonar investigations conducted in 2005 and September 2006 revealed no recent major movement of the wreck. Today, the SS Richard Montgomery is a potent reminder of World War II's long-term consequences, reminding us of the conflict's devastating possibilities. Concerns over the wreck's explosive cargo and its potential catastrophe underline the challenges war relics pose and the efforts needed to manage them. This ship tells a gripping story of the ongoing risks and historical leftovers from a war that ended over 70 years ago. Number 17. Millions of silver coins recovered from a German steamship. This might be the most fantastic find from the war. A British team managed to recover a stash of silver coins valued at $44 million from a steamship the Germans sank from an incredible depth of 17,000 feet. The ship, SS City of Cairo, was part of Ellerman Lines and led by Captain William Rogerson. It functioned as both a cargo and passenger ship. In 1942, while transporting 296 persons and 100 tons of silver coinage for the British Treasury. It was sighted by a German U-boat in the South Atlantic and sank after being hit twice in quick succession by torpedoes. In total, 192 of those on board survived in lifeboats until they were picked up by passing ships and dropped off at either St. Helena or Cape Town, South Africa. In November 2011, a salvage team undertook the daunting task of finding the wreck. The deep water, over 17,000 feet, made the search very challenging. They also had to deal with strong currents and big waves, and the location was 1,000 miles from any land, near the mid-Atlantic ridge's foothills. Luckily, their efforts paid off. Under a contract with the British Department of Transport, the company collected several tens of tons of silver coins from the wreck, which were still in Hessian sacks. It also successfully lifted the propeller from one of the torpedoes. The operation was conducted in 2013, but was kept secret until this year. After deep ocean took its portion under international marine salvage procedures, the remaining treasure was returned to its rightful owner. Number 16. Discovery of a soldier's body. Recently, in the Netherlands, a treasure hunter using a metal detector stumbled upon the body of a German soldier buried underground. He had set out that morning not expecting to find anything more than perhaps some old coins or relics. Initially excited when his metal detector beeped at him, he saw some ammunition and then, to his greater excitement, dog tags. However, his excitement diminished when he realized these tags were still on the remains of a soldier buried in an unmarked grave. Authorities in the Netherlands conducted an investigation and concluded that the soldier was a German who died during Operation Market Garden in 1944. This operation was an ambitious Allied effort to liberate the Netherlands from German occupation. Thousands of paratroopers landed in the Netherlands to capture strategic bridges and accessible, vital areas. The operation was largely successful, and many German soldiers lost their lives in the ensuing battles. This particular soldier likely fell to Allied forces and was hastily buried in his foxhole, along with his military gear, hidden beneath the earth for 75 years. Number 15. An Irish message for pilots. Air, hidden on Hothead in Dublin. A gorse fire uncovered a sign and has since been restored. Ireland chose to stay neutral during World War II, but there was worry about accidental bombings. So, in the summer of 1944, they collected 150 tons of stones and arranged them into the word Éire in big, whitewashed letters visible from the air. The Irish National Police, Garda, Air Support Unit flew above Bray Head in County Wicklow to evaluate the damage caused by the wildfire when they discovered the word Éire etched into the earth in large letters. Éire is the Irish name for Ireland, and the sign reminded pilots that they were flying over a neutral country. During World War II, more than 80 of these Éire signs were put along Ireland's coastline to warn bombers flying overhead that the country underneath them was neutral and should not be targeted. According to the Irish Air Corps, the sign discovered on August 4th was the 8th in Éire. In 2018, wildfires in Wicklow made this long-hidden Éire sign visible again. Interestingly, it was a police helicopter flying over the wildfire that first spotted the sign without understanding its significance initially. Ireland had about 83 signs along its coast, monitored around the clock to prevent a German invasion. Fires on Bray Head expose amazing World War II landmarks. The fires exposed the old Air 8 sign in reasonable condition. Number 14. Abandoned toxic base in Greenland. American flowers. There's a deserted World War II site on the remote Iketek Island, which is a sad memory of the war and is now leaking dangerous waste. It was set up in 1941 through a deal between the United States and Denmark, named Bluey East 2. This agreement freed the U.S. from cleanup duties. Locals refer to the thousands of rusting orange barrels as American flowers. From a distance on a sunny day, the 70-year-old ruins littering the island of Iketek in Greenland resemble fields of marigolds rather than deadly relics of WI. However, the Americans left the location in 1947, which has since been ignored. In 1941, the United States Air Force created a facility on Iketek known as Bluey East 2 as part of an agreement between the United States and Denmark, which had claimed Greenland in the early 18th century. The base was abandoned in 1947 following the war. Today, the site is scattered with old barrels of leaded aviation fuel, buildings full of asbestos, derelict trucks, and hundreds of boxes of unexploded dynamite, much of which is now leaking harmful substances. National Geographic highlights a worrying fact. Bluey East 2 is just one of over 30 U.S. military bases built in Greenland during World War II and the Cold War, all abandoned and leaking toxins. For Greenlanders, this situation is particularly dire. They rely on hunting and fishing, and the pollution from these 30 bases poses a significant risk to their livelihood and environment. Greenland had no say in these matters until 1979, when Denmark granted the island autonomy. Recently, a push to address this environmental hazard saw the Danish parliament committing about $25 million to clean up some of these U.S. military remnants. Greenland has also sought U.S. assistance to decontaminate Camp Century, another secretive base buried in ice, threatening to release toxic waste. The success of these cleanup efforts remains to be seen. Number 13. Roman Tower Fortress by the Nazis' War Bunker. A group of archaeologists in the United Kingdom recently discovered an old Roman fortress that the Nazis had turned into a war bunker during World War II. This was when Germany occupied the Channel Islands, located between France and England. Locally known as the Alderney Nunnery, this site has layers of history stretching back to medieval times and was also used during the Tudor period and by Napoleon. It's been a site of human activity for over 2,000 years. Remarkably, it was also where the only 2 concentration camps on British soil were built. Dr. Jason Monahan, an archaeologist part of the team, shared with the media that the site is incredibly complex. The remains of a further building built on top of the courtyard have also been found in trenches excavated by the archaeologists. The fortress saw damage in the medieval period and had new sections added in the 18th century. But in 1793, the British Army knocked down much of its interior. By 1906, it had been adapted for use by military families. The Nazis were the last to use it, reinforcing the ancient structure with their bunkers and adding concrete to its walls to withstand artillery fire. They left the fortress when the war ended, giving up the only piece of British land they had captured during the conflict. During World War II, the German military continued their efforts. Dr. Monahan noted, "The Germans neatly inserted their Type 501 bunker into the tower ruins, effectively shuttering the north and south internal walls to pour their concrete. Unfortunately, they dug up the entire tower interior to do so, erasing all evidence of internal structures or floors. Dig Alderney announced plans to return to the Alderney Nunnery in spring 2022 to learn more about the site's medieval and Tudor past. Number 12. Discovery of the Nazi Eagle. Uruguay recently uncovered a colossal eagle weighing over 800 pounds and clutching a swastika. Still, soon after its discovery, they were told to auction off this massive bronze Nazi emblem and remove it from the country. This eagle was initially affixed to the back of a German warship, the Admiral Graf Spee, which sank near South America at the start of World War II. The use of the imperial eagle in a reigning emperor's coat of arms began after the interruption. Following his coronation as Holy Roman Emperor in 1433, Sigismund of Luxembourg used a black double-headed imperial eagle. Henceforth, the single-headed imperial eagle denoted the title of King of the Romans, and the double-headed one the title of Emperor. Albert I of Germany was the final king-elect of Germany, who did not go on to be crowned emperor. Following the German Reformation, which began with Ferdinand I, 1558, Holy Roman emperors were no longer crowned by the Pope. The Teutonic Order, led by Hermann von Salza, had the honor of displaying the imperial eagle in its coat of arms, and Frederick I granted it. Rediscovered in 2006 by divers hired by Uruguay's government, they couldn't retrieve the whole warship but did bring up the eagle, causing quite a stir. It was briefly shown in Montevideo before being hidden away due to Germany's objections to displaying Nazi items. The emblem of the Third Reich has long been contentious, and the German government restricts the display or sale of such items unless they're in a museum for educational purposes. To avoid international tensions, Uruguay's courts decided the eagle had to be sold within 90 days, with the money going to the salvage team who found the shipwreck. Admiral Graf Spee was notorious for sinking Allied merchant ships in the South Atlantic until British cruisers found and destroyed it on December 13, 1939. Its captain scuttled the ship in Montevideo's harbor and died in Buenos Aires a few days later. The vessel remained unseen until its recent rediscovery. Number 11. A Lost Mortar. In a quiet British village, bomb disposal experts were summoned for a controlled explosion, surprising the residents of Codown in Rostrevor. Their peaceful life was interrupted for several hours due to an unexpected find. A local, John Ross McMathuna, discovered an old World War II mortar using his metal detector in a field. This rusty but still dangerous device, packed with 2 pounds of explosives, was likely left by American forces who had used the area for training before D-Day. These soldiers had practiced with various explosives in the area and accidentally forgot one. Thankfully, the farmer knew the proper steps to take. He alerted the authorities, and by early morning, the bomb disposal team had safely detonated the bomb. The loud explosion was a startling wake-up call for the villagers and a reminder of the hidden dangers in their fields. Metal detecting enthusiasts, take note. Number 10. Amphibious Tank. Recently, a massive amphibious tank was dug up from 30 feet underground in an English field. Amazing excavators in England discovered it 74 years after it went missing. The backstory of the tank dates to 1947, when more than a dozen Buffalo LVT landing vehicle tracked machines were brought to Lincolnshire to assist the British Army in constructing flood defenses. Unfortunately, the floods were too much for some amphibious tanks, and 5 were lost, including this one, which remained missing until now. The discovery was not just by chance. A team of local military history buffs was determined to find it. After 5 days of digging, their efforts paid off. The vehicle, measuring about 26 feet in length, was initially designed to carry supplies and troops over water for missions across Europe and the Pacific during World War II. These vehicles played crucial roles in many of the war's most significant battles, such as the D-Day landings and the Battle of Iwo Jima. Before being lost to the floods, this particular Buffalo LVT had been used to ferry soldiers across the Rhine River in Germany in March 1945. Number 9. A lost attack plane. Recently, in Poland, a very rare Soviet ground attack aircraft, a Petliakov PE-2, was found. Local villagers stumbled upon the plane's remains by chance. Tragically, the 2 crew members were still inside the cockpit, in their uniforms, with their personal belongings intact, though only their bones remained. These 2 were later taken from the crash site and returned to Russia for burial. The job of pulling the wreck out of the swampy area where it lay fell to the Polish villagers. They even took apart some of the more significant, still whole parts to send them to a museum nearby for exhibition. The plane had been part of a Soviet defensive operation during the retreat of the Wehrmacht in January 1945. The pilots were engaged in a Soviet attack, pushing through Poland and driving the Germans out, leading up to the final capture of Berlin. Adolf Hitler's German army invaded Poland, initiating World War II, though Japan and China were already at war in 1939. The struggle for Poland lasted about a month before the Nazis won. However, the invasion sparked a conflict that lasted over 6 years and claimed the lives of tens of millions of people. Annexing Poland was a step toward that greater goal. But why did Adolf Hitler invade Poland? The Polish military was unable to stop him, and Hitler accurately predicted that Europe's major nations would not intervene in time. This aircraft was one of the casualties of that push, crashing and being lost to memory for 75 years. It's worth noting that this isn't the only WBY wreckage hidden in this part of Poland. Number 8. Subscriber Pick. An image that supposedly shows a metal coffin found in a swampy forest with a clear Nazi inscription. Inside, there's a body that remarkably resembles Adolf Hitler, yet surprisingly, it hasn't decayed. However, this image is likely not genuine, as historians provide various accounts of Hitler's actual demise and the whereabouts of his remains. Moreover, the condition of the body seems too well preserved for someone who passed away decades ago. There are many theories about the downfall of Adolf Hitler. What have you heard about the end of Hitler? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments. Number 7. A cache of weapons. Near St. Petersburg in Russia, police discovered a warehouse full of World War II weapons at an old man's house, close to the regional administration's building. In 2017, a couple remodeling their home in the Burgundy region of France discovered a surprise in the walls. A cache of weapons that were most likely hidden by the French. Resistance during World War II had been squirreled away, most likely by the Maquis, who had previously lived on the property. The stockpile of weaponry included 3 Steen submachine guns, 3 pistols, more than a dozen grenades, over 1,000 rounds of ammunition. It's believed his friends knew about his illegal weapons collection and might have tipped off the police. For years, this retiree had been unearthing old weapons from World War II battlefields and restoring them to working order. His extensive collection featured Mauser rifles, PPSH and PPS-43 submachine guns, MP-40s, Suomi guns, various pistols and revolvers, a tank machine gun, and an SHKS machine gun designed for Soviet planes. Additionally, the police found numerous edged weapons, bullets, grenades, and gunpowder. The elderly man now faces potential jail time for the illegal possession of guns and explosives. The couple's identity has not been made public. The identities of the original cache owners have not been divulged. Currently, the museum is confirming that Maquis indeed owned the weapons. Although Aurore Calawaert, the museum curator, has been able to trace the guns to a known member of the resistance. The museum also offers regional maps, allowing visitors to see local historical sites. These include Maquis fighters' residences, as well as the sites of fighting and massacres in Morvan. A cache of weapons was stashed by a local organization that could be retrieved as needed. After the conflict, many of the cache's locations were forgotten. Number 6. Steyr Solothurn. In Russia, the law doesn't allow citizens to own automatic weapons. However, finding one doesn't mean you have to discard it. Instead, it can be modified to shoot blanks for World War II reenactments or turned into a museum piece. This is precisely what some enthusiasts from a group in Novgorod did. They stumbled upon a rare Sol machine gun in a lousy shape. Many of its parts were missing or damaged, likely from an explosion. The group spent a long time restoring it. According to them, machine guns from the 1920s and 1930s are relatively simple regarding technology. They received significant assistance from friends in Voronezh, where the Hungarian army, once equipped with these machine guns, was defeated. Spare parts are more readily available there. The result of their efforts is a museum piece. 1940-1941, the United States Army explored using the Solothurn S-18-1000. The weapon was standardized for limited acquisition as the 20mm automatic gun T3. In early 1941, the Solothurn was pitted against the Colt .90 cal 23mm T4 automatic gun, which was designed for airplanes. Although not as strong, the Solothurn was less heavy and complicated, making it better suited for Army use. The objective was to obtain 50 components and develop the weapon in the United States. However, after lengthy contract talks, the transaction was abandoned. It was adopted by the Royal Italian Army in 1940 when a first batch was purchased from Switzerland. Initially known as Carabina S carbine, it was redesignated as Fucile Anticarro S anti-tank rifle in 1942, employed primarily on vehicles and L3 tankettes due to its size and weight. It was engaged mainly in North Africa. After September 8, 1943, it was also used by the National Republican Army of the Italian Social Republic. Number 5. Yamashita Treasure. The Yamashita Treasure, also called Yamashita's Gold, is about the rumored wealth collected by Japanese forces in World War II. This treasure, named after General Tomoyuki Yamashita, supposedly contains gold, jewels, and precious items taken from Southeast Asia. After Japan gave up, the treasure's location became a big mystery. Many treasure hunters have tried to find it, using maps and hints that often led nowhere or were fake. According to several versions, the loot was consolidated in Singapore and then moved to the Philippines. The Japanese wanted to convey the riches from the Philippines to the Japanese home islands after the war. As the Pacific War continued, U.S. Navy submarines and Allied airplanes sank, increasing numbers of Japanese commercial ships. Some of the vessels transporting the war treasure back to Japan were sunk during the fighting. The Seagraves and a few others claimed that American military intelligence operatives located much of the loot, colluded with Hirohito and other senior Japanese figures to conceal its existence, and used it as black gold to fund American covert intelligence operations around the world during the Cold War. These legends have motivated many optimistic treasure hunters, but most academics and Filipino historians say no convincing proof exists to support these assertions. The Philippines claimed to have discovered some of this gold in 1971, but the entire narrative is still being debated, and some are unsure whether the Yamashita treasure exists. Some believe it is merely a tale, while others speculate that elements of it were discovered but kept hidden. Whether it's a tale or has some truth, the Yamashita treasure keeps people interested and looking for adventure. It shows how greed, secrets, and the complicated nature of war times keep adding intrigue to the mysteries left by World War II. Number 4. Isle 4. The Bronze Regional Department and a volunteer company joined forces to find the wreckage of a Soviet long-range bomber, along with the remains of its crew members. Although the Il-4 was simply a medium bomber, it had the range to carry out vital missions. The VVS did not prioritize the deployment of bombers in this role, but the Il-4 was deployed in many long-range bombing attacks against Berlin in 1941. Most would be employed for far shorter-range missions, with an additional 1,000 Nalku to 204 Awabila of bombs under the wings and the internal 2,500 kilograms. 512 LEB. On the night of June 12, 1943, this bomber, designated Tu-915, was part of a mission of 12 planes to attack Nazi railway units at the Bryansk II station. Unfortunately, the bomber's crew of 4 did not return. The team included pilot Melin, navigator Pavo, and radio operators KBV Ghana and Enat V. The aircraft was brought down by enemy anti-aircraft fire. After the war, DF-25 was lost in a snowstorm, landed on the ice, and crashed into the woods in Oja, near the city of Kokola. Most parts of the plane were rescued and taken to a depot. During their search, the team recovered the crew's remains and pieces of the bomber from the site. It was a significant effort involving many search groups, including seasoned searchers and newcomers, working together meticulously. They managed to identify the crew thanks to the number found on the engine. A memorial obelisk now stands at the crash site to honor these airmen. The pilots' remains will be laid to rest with full military honors, paying tribute to their sacrifice. Number 3. PE-2. In the summer of 2020, search teams discovered the wreckage of a Soviet bomber near the city of Basma. This bomber, a PE-2, was a crucial Soviet dive bomber during World War II and the primary frontline bomber for the Red Army. It's the most mass-produced Soviet bomber, with 11,230 units across various modifications. The P-2 inherited the VI-100's basic low-wing, twin-engine monoplane design. It had an all-metal stressed skin structure, with cloth covering just the ailerons and control surfaces. The tail had twin fins, rudders, and a prominent 8-degree dihedral on the tailplane, which was introduced to the PB-100 to address the VI-100's poor lateral stability during testing. The P-2's wing design was likewise inherited from the VI-100. However, it had been optimized for high-altitude performance at the expense of lesser lift at low altitudes, resulting in inferior maneuverability, takeoff, and landing characteristics. The P-2 had an internal capacity for 6 100-kilo bombs, totaling 600 kilo. This was no better than that of the older Tupolev SB bomber. The internal capacity consisted of a fuselage bomb bay capable of carrying 4 100-kilo bombs or an auxiliary fuel tank and 2 small internal bomb bays in the rear of the engine nacelles, each capable of carrying a single 100-kilo bomb. This was augmented with 4 external underwing racks. These could carry 4 100-kilo or 250-kilo bombs or 2 500-kilo bombs in overload configuration for a total bomb load of 1,000 kilograms. Only the bombs in the exterior racks could be used in a dive bombing attack. The internal bombs lacked dive release gear and couldn't be released in a steep dive. Throughout 1942, the design was constantly revised and improved in close collaboration with pilots flying them in battle. Improved armor protection, a 5th GSAs machine gun, and redesigned fuel tanks were fitted. Despite anecdotal assertions from Soviet flyers, P-2s were daylight bombers, frequently crewed by inexperienced pilots in the early years of the war and suffered substantial losses. Residents, who had used parts of the crashed plane for their needs after the war while burying the larger, heavier pieces deep in the ground due to the impact, pointed out the crash site to the searchers. No crew remains were found, suggesting they might have parachuted out. Among the recovered parts were several 12.7 and 7.62 millimeter machine guns with electric drive from the wings. From these findings, the searchers created a monument honoring all pilots who died in the Second World War, installed in Region 6. Such search groups across Russia view everyone who fell in World War II as a hero, though many are listed as missing or killed in action without information on their burial sites. A specific team, ZDA, focuses on finding and exhuming the remains of soldiers, uncovering their histories, and helping families find closure. Last year, they discovered an unknown grave with 106 Red Army soldiers, identifying 11 from 35 found medallions. The soldiers were honored in a military cemetery. Another operation by searchers from Faga recovered a PE-2 from a swamp in the BY district, conducted during winter when the site was accessible. This effort retrieved the second engine, propeller, and pilot's remains, with around 50 participants, including cadets and historians from various cities. The Searchers Association is now preparing an exhibition on this tragedy, featuring pilots' items, aircraft parts, and documents. Additionally, 2 more PE-2 dive bombers were found at the RF battle site, both shot down by fighters. Bullet marks on the aircraft parts suggest the bombers were in a fierce battle, as shown by their empty machine gun ammunition. It's believed the pilots parachuted out when their ammo ran out, and their planes were severely damaged. Search teams gathered many pieces of these planes, which are now headed to the VZD Museum in Moscow. These parts will be displayed and might even be restored, explicitly focusing on such PE-2 bombers. Number 2. Japanese battleship Musashi. Over 70 years after U.S. forces sank it, the late American billionaire Paul Allen announced in 2015 that his private exploration team had found the famous World War II Japanese battleship, the Musashi. It was discovered lying on the Sibuyan Sea's bed off the coast of the Philippines at a depth of over 3,280 feet. The Musashi and its sister ship, the Yamato, were among the world's largest battleships ever built. The Musashi ended on October 24, 1944, during the Battle of Leyte Gulf, the largest naval battle in World War II, where American and Australian forces defeated the Japanese warship. Allen shared the discovery on Twitter, including images of the sunken battleship. He had been searching for the Musashi for 8 years, and after a renewed search of the seabed in the middle of the Philippine waters using an autonomous underwater vehicle, AUV, the team found the ship. The U.S. Navy's website describes the Musashi as a mighty battleship with massive 18-inch guns, making it one of the largest battleships constructed, stretching 862 feet, 263 meters. The U.S. Navy noted that this battle also damaged its sister ship, the Yamato, which American destroyers sank several months later as it attempted to return to Okinawa. Number 1. P-40 Kitty Hawk and a pilot. In 2012, a Polish oil drilling team stumbled upon a British P-40 Kitty Hawk warplane in the Sahara Desert, lost in 1942. The pilot, Flight Sergeant Dennis Copping from Southend, Essex, was flying between 2 British bases in Egypt during World War II's North African campaign when he disappeared. For 70 years, no one knew what happened to him or his plane until it was found, amazingly well preserved. It appeared Copping had survived the crash and tried to use his parachute as a makeshift shelter. Sadly, it's believed he died trying to walk out of the desert. The plane, still loaded with ammunition, was in remarkable condition, but was later displayed in the El Alamein Museum in Egypt, a move criticized by British historians for the poor restoration, suggesting it should have remained a memorial to Sergeant Copping. As we wrap up, what discovery from WW2 surprised you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below.